What's up, guys? This is episode 2 of the FLoopics tutorials, the basics on how to use it, and I thought I'd go over how to use everything in the mixer and how to route instruments, how to do everything in the mixer. So the mic is still a piece of shit, so ignore that. But mixer, like I said in the first tutorial, is where all your instruments go by default into the master, but you can individually route instruments to different channels, which then are routed to the master or to different channels for sidechaining and effects. So I guess we'll start with what the master is, and that's the output, which right now is set to my speakers. So speakers, Realtek, yada yada, shittiest audio driver ever. Laptop, deal with it. And depending on how many outputs you have in your audio settings here, I have it set to the internal audio driver because Audio doesn't work with Fraps recording unless you want to use Edison, and that's too much work. Audio, of course, it'll set Audio is kind of a latency. Think of it as mantle for audio, if you know what mantle is on AMD. So that's that. Input here, if you have any mics set up, which right now my Logitech headset isn't detected for some reason, and there's a help menu. Now you know. And you can set that to any channel you want there to record, which will be routed to the master. So that's that. And inside of here, there's 8 effect slots, but you can have a lot more if you route tracks to different tracks. So insert 1 to insert 2 if you're doing some kind of neuro, or you can use a patcher for it. And below that, you have the master EQ here, which is kind of a 3-band deal. I think there are resonance controls here. So EQ, it's the width, which I think it's kind of like the resonance, not the resonance, but the bandwidth of it. So that's that, and what frequency it starts at. So you can move it to the mids there if you want. You can go crazy, but I'd like to do it with a parametric EQ. Stereo separation, same controls as the one over here, just over here. And panning, which is same control as the one over here, only again more precise. And same deal with this here for the master fader. Track latency compensation, this is for if you have any plugins on it like Maximus. Usually it introduces some latency, but it's on the master, so you don't need to worry. But if you have drum loop or something with the drums routed to the master with Maximus on insert 5 with the drums, there will be latency, and latency compensation has, say, the other plugins or the master wait until this plugin's done rendering before it sends its input to the output. And that's a brief description of how that works. Just reset these. That's the master, and there are, I think, 99 plus 4 sends in a master of inserts here. So you can have a hell of a lot of instruments. And not only that, but you can route multiple instruments and sounds to one mixer track. So you could put 2 snares in here, 2 kicks here, 3 kicks, whatever you want to do. And all these tracks here are routed into the master channel by default with this thing here, as I went over a little bit before. So let's say I want to put a lot of effects on something. Let's get harmless. Wow, it's beautiful. Let's say I want to put a load of effects on it. First off, it's routed to the master, and that's not what we want. So to route it to another channel, this harmless here, make sure it's selected with this green check here by right-clicking. And I think if you right-click, it selects all the plugins at once. So that's a good thing to know. Select it up here in your pattern editor. And the easiest way to do it is click on the mixer track you want to route it to, and just press Control L, and it sets everything. And there you go. And if you don't like the color, just middle click on your mouse or press, I think, F2. Yes, F2 if you don't have a mouse. And click on this here, switch the color, change it to, I don't know, sounds, because I'm good at the spellings. Oh, my cat's on my case. Yeah, so I guess I'll first go over what the controls do here if you don't know what they do. Like this is the pan here. Pretty self-explanatory. This is the stereo separation, might be hard to hear. In fact, it's impossible to hear because it's a mono signal. If I put reverb on it, you would be able to hear it. Reverse polarity. Quite a huge difference, actually. I never noticed that if you look in the scope up here. it literally reverses the polarity of the waveform. Who would have guessed? And for swapping left and right channels, for whatever reason you need that for, then EQ, boost the lows, cut the mids, boost the highs, yada yada. Pretty basic there. So I guess we'll get to the effects now. So to add an effect, you click on the drop down arrow here. Any one of them, they just go in sequential order here. So on one, say I want to EQ it. Most likely you want to grab a parametric EQ2, which comes with FL Studio, and it kicks ass. There's a spectrum peak here, this being the fundamental tone of the synthesizer, which is the lowest note. Around, it's like 175 hertz-ish. And based on how notes work, it'll go up as you play higher notes. Music theory in a nutshell. Not really, it's notes. So I guess we'll do a quick rundown of what an EQ does. These are individual bands that control frequencies, and it's parametric, so each band follows a curve connected to the other one. It's not a straight line. That's a linear phase EQ, and that introduces latency or something like that. Ask Seamless for that. He's an FL Studio prodigy. So say I want to cut the mids here. Not the mids, the lows. This is the lowest frequencies. This basically represents the lowest frequencies based on the curve you set. So if I pull it down here, anything below 81 hertz will be slowly cut off here. If I scroll on this thing, it'll be a less steep of a slope. If I scroll all the way up, there will be a resonant peak there, and it'll be a steep drop down with no frequencies beyond about 55 hertz-ish. So I want to cut that out. And it's parametric, so it's based on a parametric algorithm, I guess, or however that is, the curve, it's graphing. But just scroll on these to set the different curves for it. Cut the mids out, or the highs out, keep saying mids. This is high end, middle three usually. This is the middle mids, low mids, high end, and very high end, or the treble, as it says up here. And then the other two are the bass and the sub bass. And EQs are very useful because you can sculpture sound into anything. If it doesn't sound right, EQ it. Now it'd blend with the mix easier. It kind of has a vocal shape to it, but in order to give it a vocal shape, you can probably kind of like form and shaping. These are the resonant controls here, the bandwidth controls, as I say here. And bandwidth is how wide the band is. Yes. So that's one effect there, and that's how effects work. And next to it, here's a mute button, which you can press. No S to solo, just on the mixer. You can click these here to mute them individually. Right-click to solo, so on. Right-click again, unsolo, and you can mute and solo multiple tracks at once, or multiple effects at once. And this is the mix level, which is between 100% the wet signal, which is everything from the plugin is used and none of the dry signal, unless the plugin actually uses the dry signal, which in an EQ's case, probably not. And this is the dry signal, which is, of course, unprocessed. You can do mixes, get interesting sounds. EQ usually has zero latencies to it, so plugin latency compensation won't be on. And if you fade the two to if you fade it to 50% here on the mix, it probably won't have any phase issues because there's zero latency. It's just affecting the different bands. But back to the actual effects. What if you want, I don't know, a load of effects, say wave shaper, and another wave shaper, and a reverb. That's Edison. I need to look for it, don't I? Fruity reverb 2. And if you want to fine-tune your effects one at a time, you can, again, solo them or mute them accordingly. So I want to wave shape it and give it some color. And that's the wrong one. This is the right one. And what wave shaping is a kind of compression deal where it moves the waveform, it moves the incoming audio signal so fast, like in Maximus there's the release time controls, that it creates distortion. It's compression without any controls, so it's created for making distortion, and Here's polar and unipolar, which is unipolar 1, bipolar 2. I think so. Yes, not sure. I'm just an algebra 2, don't judge me. There's some distortion on it. Wow, that's messy. That's 2 distortion and reverb. It's kind of a spatial effect where, say I'm in a room right now that's pretty small, so if I play a loud sound in here or I clap, the reverb or the sound signal will bounce around the room because I have no acoustic treatment in my room, and it will bounce around until it finally fades itself out and absorbs itself in the walls or something, or in the corners. Reverb in here is a forced effect because by default the sounds that you produce here, unless they're samples that have some incredible reverb on them, are pretty fucking stereo, anti-stereo. If you put reverb on it, it sounds pretty wide. Turn up the stereo separation. Sounds like you're in a room. And again, the dry means original input, wet is the processed input, so that's that. And I'll cover reverb later, and there's presets here. Access presets within plugins. There's 2 arrows here. You can either click on the arrow to the farthest left and go to presets, or the easier way, right click on the 2 arrows next to the X on the right edge of the plugin. For some reason, is there a limiter? It's not clipping on me. That's neat. That's reverb there. And let's just say all these are... Whoa. Yeah, I don't like phase inversion. Let's just put random effects on here. I'm just showing about routing. And Maximus, why not? Yeah. Fucking weird compression and stuff. This isn't even compression, it's like audio destruction. You get the idea. It sounds pretty shit, but it's just to demonstrate what I'm doing. Wow, 2 compressors in 1 and 2 wave shapers. Man, it's going to sound beautiful. So all your effects racks are taken up here. What if you want to make your sound even more beautiful and process it more? Well, you're going to route it. You can either replace one of these plugins or all of them with a patcher, which is kind of, it's pluginception. You can put plugins within the plugin to make an effects rack, like if you're doing neuro or anything. But easier way to do it, in my case, because patcher is pretty glitchy, and in your case it might be too if you're using FL11.04 or whatever it is, just click the input here and turn it off. If you play it, it shows that it is receiving audio, but it's not going to the master because it's not routed to the master. But if you want to route it to another rack to add more effects to it, just click on the top one here, which is, it should say enable send from insert 1 to insert 2. Or not insert 1, just insert 2. Now insert 1 is receiving audio from our plugin here, and it's processing it, and then it's sending it to insert 2. I know plugin delay compensation because I have no other instruments, but it's sending 1 to 2, and 2 is routed to the master. So it is receiving audio. If I want to put more plugins, I can. You can do this as many times as you want, but that's again the point of patcher. If you want to, if you want to, I thought I heard my mom. If you want to add more plugins to something without taking too many racks up. I didn't see my mom. Yeah, I'm recording. But as far as that's routing. If you want to use patcher, do that. But there are more purposes for it other than adding more effects, like sidechaining, which is ducking an audio signal behind another audio signal. So if you want to make your kicks stand out, I'll grab I'll just get a sample. Sorry about the background noise. So let's get a kick. Why not? I like that one. It's pretty rich, pretty clicky. And I guess I'll give you a brief view of Control L again to route it to a rack here, but it won't do anything because I deactivated 2, and now it's on. I think I'll give you a brief tutorial on how to compress things with the limiter too. It's a tutorial. In the tutorial, you're learning so much. And I grabbed a love filter, not a limiter. So grab a Fruity limiter. I don't know, let's make this thing. Ooh. Wow, it's like Big House or something. But what you want to do here is make your kicks as kicky as possible, as punchy as possible. By the way, if you're playing samples, again, Q is C5, which is the bass note, and it will play as unedited or unaffected. So you want to, usually I turn up the ceiling to max out the decibels in case I'm doing any effects before it, but I always do limiter first, so that's unnecessary. The ceiling is how high the audio will go before it's compressed based on these parameters here, but want to forcefully compress it with the compression tab, which is under the limiter. It says limit, you want to go to comp. Now what you want to do here is set the threshold to the kick you're using, and this is kind of the area where the audio will be crunched down into itself. So if I want to set the threshold here to this much, nothing will happen because our ratio is at 0, I think, or 1:1. So the audio coming in will go out exactly as it is, unprocessed, dry. There's a kick. Now, if you want to compress it, just turn up the ratio. And you see those peaks there, that means the audio is being crunched down. And this is the gain reduction here, the gain reduction envelope, I guess. And that's how much of the audio is actually going down from the kick. And the gray here is the stuff that's left, and the purple is the stuff that's being compressed. So all the kick here, all the detail that's in there has been compressed into there. Makes it sound, you know, probably adjust it a little and adjust the knee. So ratio, knee, and threshold are the main controls that you need here. And that's good. And usually what I like to do, take this gain and turn it to a reasonable amount. So I think 5 dB exactly. As you can see, this isn't a smooth envelope. There are a little bit of kind of a fuzziness there. That's distortion because of the release time. So what I like to do, turn down the ahead because, yeah, that, I mean, does make it clicky. Not as clicky as the attack though, but I just don't like it, and I think it introduces latency. There's a pretty distorted kick. Hard style and shit. Not hard style, big house. I don't like either of the two though. So what you want to do now is turn up the release a little bit until there's a little distortion, because distortion is nice, and then you want to turn up the attack, give it click, and do it to preference. It's a punchy kick. If you want, you can adjust the curve too to reduce the distortion. And that's pretty freaking punchy. And there's a little tutorial on compression there, which is a destructive effect on audio, but it ends up can make things sound better by tightening up the low end if it's a multi-band compressor, which is another tutorial. This is only part 2, noted. I'm speaking very quickly. So about side chaining now. What it is, it's pretty much like that, only it's inputting audio. Like say the kick right now is audio, and it's compressing it based on a curve here, but the way that side chaining works is, well, you have an input here, say the kick, and you have another audio signal like, well, I should probably take those effects off. Quick tip, you can click this thing that says effects to take all the effects off. Now it's a boring saw wave, whoop-de-doo. So it's taking the audio signal and it's reducing the volume based on what the kick is, so the audio input of the kick, as well as these parameters here. So it's adjustable, not just, it's not like automating the volume, the fader here, but it is quite nice. It lets the drum stick out of the mix and lets it adds a pumping effect, if you know what that is. Let me record something simple. Friggin' prodigy of music. Let me just shorten this. It's a piano roll, by the way, if you didn't watch the first tutorial. Quantize. That's beautiful. That's so off, but that's not important. It's just the purpose of the tutorial. So right now, you can hear the synth is pretty much sticking out more than the kick. So what you can do first is reduce this here. There's a lot more methods like EQing the sound out, or stretching the stereo field out, or changing the panning. But you know, we want to hear that synth. So let me get something interesting, like a lead, something moogie, like a, what's a good one? I think it's in keyboards. Let's just grab a keyboard. Yeah, I can't stand that. There you go. It's beautiful. You know, it kind of sounds like just the two are not blended together, just playing side by side, and that's usually what makes a bad mix sound bad. So we want the kick to stand out, and if we limit it, it'll, well, limit the kick. So what we're going to do is route both of these things to insert 5. So an easy way to do it, instead of clicking this here, is right click on the top part here, it's a macro, and choose route to this track only. And what this is, again, insert goes into the insert, audio goes into the insert, insert goes to another insert, this insert goes to the master. And what we're doing here is routing 2 inserts to another insert so we can sidechain. So or routing this to here, I'm doing it this way. And both of these are routed to this track, and this track is routed to the master. But what we want to do to make the kick sound more is simply turn this down, because I'm showing an example of what you can do to sidechain the right way. So usual sidechaining, you can just route an instrument here and turn up the volume, and you can hear the kick with the limiter, and that's not really nice. What I like to do is, and what I'm sure a lot of people do, is just sidechain it. So it's sending the audio waveform, but it's not actually playing it here. But instead, we'll sidechain here and route it here. So we get audio out here, and the kick's being unaffected by compression except its own limiter. That's pretty confusing, by the way. But it is controlling this here. So think of it as automation on audio. Now for the compression part, which will be the ending of a tutorial, or a sidechain part. So I always like to take the ceiling off and turn it all the way so no compression occurs on any synths that are leading in. And what you want to do is right click on the sidechain thing here and choose your kick or snare. And you won't see anything except for the audio here, or the waveform. So bring the threshold down and you will see the kick. You can see that. Now if you bring the ratio down, you can see that's sidechain there. It adds a pumping effect to it. And that's pretty easy, but you can fine-tune it to make it sound snappier and just better. Of course, turn the head down. I think it's, what the hell, comp RM. I don't know what that is. Just turn it down though. It's not good. Swap off between the release and the curve, and your life will be better. If you turn the attack too high, it'll just plain out cut out the compression all the way, so be lenient with it. It's a little off actually. There we go. And that's sidechaining. Let's hear it without it. So I'll turn this on. You know, the kick, it's not really pumping. It's not really, it doesn't have too much energy. It's just a kick layered on top of a synth with a very basic set of notes I played on a keyboard. If you click on the limiter now, it sounds pretty fat. I mean, it's reducing the loudness of it, well, the dynamic range of it, but you can make it louder now that there's less dynamic range. So that's a mixer in a nutshell. If there's anything else you want to know, I will address it in tutorial 3, but I'm probably going to do a tutorial on a synthesizer like Citrus or something like that. So until the next one, I will see you guys later. Have a nice day.